I've been going through the biblical stories on my tour and in this new book I'm writing, and Moses in that book is the archetype of a leader. That's what that story is about. And Moses is seriously punished by God for reverting to power when invitation and explanation would suffice. That's his temptation, right? And you can imagine that that's the temptation of a political leader, especially as your reputation grows. The club that you can wield gets larger and larger as you're more and more influential. And so I'm wondering if that proclivity that you described for that tilt, that temptation towards disdain and fighting back, I'd like to unpack that a little bit more, because you lay out a very clear case for why that all emerged. But then you also said that to some degree that interfered with people's ability to see who you were really on the leader front rather than on the fighter front, let's say. And I'm not saying I know how to negotiate that, because I don't. It's obviously an extremely complicated space. But so let's assess that. In reflection, do you think there are ways that you would conduct yourself going forward if you replicated your adventure? And then I'd also like to delve more into your relationship with Trump. Drawing on something that you did say earlier, you said that perhaps part of the reason the legacy media went after you was because they saw you providing the same attractive message to, say, disaffected working class Americans that Trump managed, except you could do it in a manner that was intellectually credible. Now, you were careful during your campaign, in my estimation, to not poke the bear that's Trump, or his followers for that matter. And so I'd like to explore your relationship a bit more with Trump. And I'd also like you to comment a bit more on that contradiction between fighting and pushing and laying out an attractive invitational vision.
Yeah, so I'll start with that latter piece. It's a hard thing to do, and I don't see a particular, for myself at least, a point to relitigate, what I would have done differently. I think the circumstances, in some ways, it's hard to imagine it going any differently, because the path that led there was the entire path that I walked through in our conversation. It was almost unavoidable, because at that point, it was a sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because I put myself in a situation, which was the only way to get on the map, that had invited the level of arrows that I was taking from the other candidates from the media and, from the traps that were laid and from the political industrial complex, that if I didn't hit back, I'd be too weak to be the president of the United States and wouldn't deserve that job. And there was no other way other than to hit back and hit back hard. But the window of formats that reaches people is sufficiently narrow that it doesn't allow for multiple aspects of a personality to come through, right? So you get one label, you're able to get through to the people in the mediums that are available to you. In the media, I don't really mean in just the corporate media, but in the collective mediums that are available to you. Fighter was the one that came through. And so, could I have done it differently? I don't know. I certainly was unable to, because the truth is I am a fighter, but I'm not just a fighter. But that's what came across when people were finally paying attention to the candidacy. And the reality is, and understandably so for many voters, if you want a fighter in the White House, take the one who's proven, who has taken more arrows, far more than I have, and overcome them. That was Donald Trump, which was many of the people who loved me the most. I mean, really love me as supporters. The people who are guys who were maybe coming to 15, 20 events that I held in Iowa, people who are enthusiastic supporters speaking, still caucus for Donald Trump, right? And I don't blame them for it, because if what you see as the value proposition is, here's a young fighter who's going to fight for me and fight for this country just as hard as he fights to defend himself against the treacherous media and political industrial complex, I love that, and I'm going to vote for Donald Trump because he has proven at a scale that nobody has that that's a guy who's going to be able to do it. So that's what ended up happening there. But on a go-forward basis, I guess the difference is, and I don't know what's next for me. The truth is I'm keeping a very open mind. The only criteria is have an impact on the country that's positive and not small. As I said, it takes as much effort to do something small as it does to do something big. Large-scale positive impact in saving this country and reviving who we are. Whatever I do next, it's going to fit that description. But let's say that there was a replay of it, but you're starting from where we left off, right? This last time. I'm not starting from the place I did last time.
Yeah, right.
Right. And so it's one thing to fight for relevance and then fight to be perceived in the right way. If you're starting to already from the place of relevance, but then the question is just making sure people understand who you really are. In some ways you can't, it's like an algebra problem, right? You can only solve for one variable with one equation at a time. And so in some ways I was with one equation, the one linear race, trying to solve for both two variables, one of relevance and the other one of actually being seen the correct way. You had to kind of pick one.
Are you ready for a fresh start after the holiday indulgence? Make 2025 your healthiest year yet with Balance of Nature. Those Christmas cookies and holiday feasts were great, but now your body's craving something different. That's where Balance of Nature comes in, the perfect way to reset your health this new year. Getting your daily fruits and vegetables has never been easier. Balance of Nature takes fresh produce, freeze dries it to preserve nutrients, and delivers it in a convenient capsule you can take anywhere. No additives, no fillers, no synthetics or added sugar, just pure fruits and vegetables in every capsule. It's that simple. Are you ready to transform your health in 2025? For a limited time, use promo code Jordan to get 35% off your first order, plus receive a free fiber and spice supplement. Head over to balanceofnature.com and use promo code Jordan for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer, plus get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Jordan for 35% off. Balance of Nature, promo code Jordan for 35% off your first preferred order, plus a free bottle of fiber and spice.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, you did put yourself on the map. That was a success. And you're not very old. And there's no reason from a bird's eye view to assume that this is your kick at the can. I don't feel, having watched what you did, that you're exhausted as a political candidate, especially given how young you
I'm
are.
energized.
And so, right? Okay. So maybe you laid the groundwork for something that could emerge in the future. Now, there's a variety of ways that could go. Everyone can see that you've had a fair bit of interaction with Trump after your run for presidency, came to its end. Everyone, of course, is wondering what that might hold in the future. What's your sense of what you could bring and might bring to the table, assuming that a Trump presidency is realized in November?
Well, the first thing I would say is I think it would be a mistake to just rest on one's laurels as a candidate and assume that is the outcome. So the first thing I'm focused on is making sure that we do have a Trump presidency in November, doing everything I can, traveling different parts of this country, campaigning for Trump, not just through the primary, which is now, effectively and has been for a while over, but in the general election against Biden, reaching young voters, reaching non-traditional voters. I mean, even if you think about Asian Americans or Indian Americans, I think 70% went the direction of Biden last time around, despite the fact that their values are almost undoubtedly more aligned with the pro-excellence agenda that Trump stands for now. Young people in this country who are starving for purpose and meaning. We've talked about this in our last episode that we did together. Well, the left isn't providing that, or they're satisfying it with the equivalent of fast food, with race and gender and sexuality and climate, a positive nationalistic vision that says that, you know what, this is a country that is the greatest country known to mankind, and you have an opportunity not only to live here, but to contribute to this country and pass that on to the next generation. That civic sense of duty fills what many young people are starving for, and I think that it's far more aligned with the message Trump is delivering than the nonsense they're hearing from Biden or the other side. And so my focus in the near term is don't take some outcome for granted. Make sure that Trump is elected as the next president. Do everything I can in my power to make that happen. And in the meantime, if there are opportunities to continue to drive positive change through the private sector, as I was doing before I ran for president, let me have at it. It's a perfect opportunity to do it. I mean, Strive is a company I co-founded as you know, to push back against the ESG movement. I'm incredibly
Right,
proud
which
of
is
the progress.
which is going very well.
Yes, I'm very
pushing
proud
back
of the
against the ESG
accomplishments.
movement. Yeah,
I'm very proud of Strive's accomplishments and mentoring some of the other businesses that I've co-founded to have positive impact, for-profit, nonprofit, through the private sector, a lot of ways to drive change, and then make sure that that electoral outcome is what it is in November. I think that's actually the top objective. And one of the things I've found in my life, at least, is when you make these elaborate personal plans, right? You know, if this happens, then I'm going to do that thing. And if the other thing happens, then I'm going to do the other thing. And if that doesn't happen, then here's my plan B. At least in my life, I've learned that your plans are stupid. Okay, at least maybe not yours, but mine. My plans are stupid. And so I'm guided by my purpose. That's great. The plan will reveal itself, but the purpose is the same one that I entered the race with, which was to revive who we are, revive our missing national identity and self-confidence, pass that on to my kids and their generation. I volunteered to do it as the next president. The people of this country made clear, certainly in the Republican Party, and I think far beyond that, that they want Donald Trump to do that job. Thankfully, his ideology is, very similar to mine in terms of what it means to advance an America First agenda. And so I've put all my energy into making sure that Donald Trump is elected the next president. The reason I support Trump is because I support America First values, because I support this country. It's not the other way around. But that's, I think, the reason most people who support Trump feel that way. And I view it the same way, is we're going to do whatever we can to revive our country. The number one most impactful thing we can do is have a U.S. president that shuts down and eviscerates much of that managerial bureaucracy in the federal government, that revives our sense of national pride, does some basic things that Americans across the political spectrum agree on, from shutting the border to growing the economy. I clearly believe that Donald Trump is the man to get that job done, and I'm going to make sure that he succeeds at it.